You mentioned Joe Rogan. What's your relationship been like with him? What have you guys learned from each other? He had me on his show back in episode 271, and it was a big deal. It was kind of like what you're talking about when you reached out and supported other, young media companies. Having that accolade from Joe was gave me a lot of juice. Yeah, how have you guys been over the years? You have a great podcast together, obviously.
I'm not going to put Joe down, but so this is an attack, but it's also a compliment. All right. And I would do this on my own show, but you really want me to do this?
Yes.
Well, the reason I'm mad at Joe is that he's one of the smartest people I know. And everybody says smartest people I know. And I mean, I know top lawyers. I know the president. I know generals, four-star generals. I mean, I know people that worked at MK Ultra. I mean, I know the smartest people, okay? And Joe Rogan is scary smart in person. Like, by the way, Trump, he does that little dumb talk down thing. The real Donald Trump behind the scenes is like freaking Gandalf, okay? And Joe will sit there when I've been on the show or others are, and he'll go, oh, I heard this. Is that dumb? He'll make a joke, and then he lets them get it out because he thinks that's safe. And he's not a coward. He's a tough guy. But he just thinks it's smarter to play those games. So here's an example. Not this weekend, but the weekend before last, I get a call. He says, this is really interesting about Wuhan being where that came from and it being released. I've heard that when you send me a bunch of articles. And I said, yeah. And then a week later, he does a video and he goes, oh, look, with Tim Dillon. Alex Jones sent me all these messages. He goes, yeah, everybody's got my number. I delete their numbers out all the time, but not his number. But I mean, it's just, it gets annoying. And I sent him all the reports, admissions. It's all admitted now, of course. And I get what he did. He put that out. He said Alex Jones says it's a bioweapon lab that released it, now confirmed. But then he did it with a backhanded thing. Like, I was like scrabbling up against the glass, like trying to tell him that. And the thing is, he didn't need to have me send him all that. The guy, all he does is read news. He already knows more than I do. Like, this is not a joke. Joe Rogan is like Alex Jones, but not squared, but like on his own thing. He knows everything I know. He's just as hyper as I am. I'll sit there and have conversations with him, and he knows all of it and more. And I'm like, he's like 10 years older than me, and he knows everything I know. And then it pisses me off to watch him sit up there, but maybe he's smarter than me. Maybe he knows what he's doing. It's just extremely, and it wasn't that he dissed me. That was his little safe way of like, Alex sent me these texts. Oh, everybody annoys me. Yeah, I try to block the calls, but they still come through. He asked for that in whatever weird alchemy he's involved in so that he would then go on air and say, oh, look, Alex Jones texted me, and, he says the Wuhan lab released it. But it was a compliment. He did it 2 days before it totally broke. And he knew it was coming out, so it's his weird jujitsu. So I don't think Joe's a bad guy. It's just that it's very frustrating that if he would just be a little more like me and actually do the frontal attack, because he's a good guy. He's a good man.
Right.
He legitimately cares about people, and people know that. But when you're up there watching Joe, man, he's literally, I think that's why he's so popular, is that people know that there's something else going on right there. And they kind of keep tuning in to say, okay, when do I get it? When do I find out the full download? And so maybe Joe is the next level. Maybe he's the smart one that knows, how to play the globalist and how to stay on air. I just don't get it. So there's my joke.
You feel like you want him, you feel like you want him to be more of a leader and more just to say, hey, this is what's happening, as opposed to play the, oh, I heard, or, oh, this guy sent me this.
That's exactly. I've told him 100 times. I said, Joe, if you just be a leader, then you're so big now, they're not even going to ban you for that. You have to be a leader. And he's done that with Joe Biden, saying Joe Biden's had a stroke in his head. I mean, look, I'm not going to criticize him. All I can do is add the authenticity to the fact that he's a smart guy. And that's why I was pissed a couple of years ago where he'd have these guests on talking crap about me. And I know full well Joe knows all this stuff's true. He knows about Building 7. He knows about the eugenics. He knows about Jeffrey Epstein. Like, you watched that first interview. So he never had me on his podcast for like 10 years. And he has me on like that podcast like 3 years ago after Trump's elected. And he's like, oh, what about this? And like, he's reminding me of stuff I forgot about. And so again, it's not a backhanded compliment. It's just the way it is that he knows all that stuff, but then he sits there and thinks, well, if I code it and then bring it out this way, then somehow I'm not going to get the repercussions from it. And they know he's doing that. So I don't know what he thinks he's doing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's a fair criticism, and I think you make some good points there. And
I'm not even saying it's a criticism, Brian.
Yeah, it's just an observation, a different style. And you're saying maybe it's the smart style in the long run, but for you, sometimes you're like, why don't you just be that guy? I think I understand.
Well, imagine seeing Joe Rogan for him real self. I mean, I've seen the real Joe Rogan. So, I mean, I've been in, Vegas with him. Nothing bad went on, but I mean, I've seen Joe Rogan when he's got 2 bottles of vodka in him and other things. He's a cool guy, man. He's super smart and cares. And people see that, like you, Brian, you're a real guy. They see it, they resonate, they see I'm a real guy. And so Joe is just, I want to see him be who he is. I'm not envious of the giant audience. I want it. I want to be able to warn them. But I don't care. It's almost better to be the underdog and like suppressed down here, like Julius Caesar locked off in Germania or whatever. But it's just like But listen, he's following his own path. And I don't want to get into psychoanalyzing him, but, grew up poor in Boston. Dad was a cop, beat the hell out of his mother in front of him, didn't have food some of the time. It's like playing it safe, but it's those blue-collar guys. And I don't say that as a mean thing. It's those blue-collar guys that can take over the world, but they always want the approval of the system. And I know Joe's about to have, the biggest media. He already has one of the biggest in the world, but he's about to have, the biggest platforms you can have. He's going just up. But sometimes all the way to the top, if you invert it, it's all the way at the bottom.